It's caused me to have to do some unorthodox things, non-traditional things like sleeping on top of a roof to raise money because I'm not waiting on government to write me a check. And I realized I have to get the attention of people who are compassionate and have a heart toward certain work. And so what better way to do that than to try to get their attention doing things that people will see. And that's kind of how I've approached a lot of the work that we do.
Some people talk about unity. Pastor Brooks is actually walking for it. At a time when Black-Jewish relations are either romanticized or weaponized, he's doing something far less performative and far more serious. He's crossing the country on foot to remind Americans that solidarity is built the old-fashioned way: presence, persistence, and shared values. The Black and Jewish community in this country share more than headlines. We share history. We stood together in the civil rights era, and we built institutions. We argued, we pushed each other, and at our best, we defined the same idea: that faith must produce action and that human dignity is just non-negotiable. Pastor Brooks is stepping into that legacy. His walk is not about symbolism, it's about substance. It reflects the Judeo-Christian moral framework that shaped this country's conscience. That belief that responsibility matters, that justice requires effort, and that freedom survives only when good people choose courage over comfort. In an age of slogans, he chooses miles. In a culture of noise, he chose a movement. Pastor Brooks, welcome to Jew and Stew.
Hi, good morning, Pastor Corey Brooks. Thank you so much for joining us on this very cold December morning for Jew and Stew. We're so thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's I feel like it's been a long time coming. And I think it's funny because the first time we scheduled this was actually on Thanksgiving. And I think I had an email and be like, I don't think any of us want to do this on Thanksgiving Day. So here we are. I hope you did have a lovely Thanksgiving.
I did. I was in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we did a feeding for about 300 homeless people. And so I had a great Thanksgiving.
That's wonderful.
Pastor Brooks, yeah, let's start a little boy in Tennessee. I really want to understand kind of your background and what got you into this calling, let's say, to be a pastor and to represent such a large demographic of Chicagoans. Take us back to little Corey Brooks, in Tennessee, kind of figuring out his way in life.
So I was born in a little town called Union City, Tennessee. Actually lived in Kenton, Tennessee, with a population of about 2,000 people. Most of the Black people there were related. So it was a really small town, real family oriented. School was really small. And I lived there till I was about 11. And then my mom got married to my stepdad, and they moved to Muncie, Indiana. And so I grew up my teen years, my formative years in Muncie, Indiana, where I really loved it. And went to high school there, ultimately went to college there at Ball State University, graduated from Ball State. And while I was at Ball State, I started preaching and wanted to be a pastor. So I became a youth pastor early on. After that, I went to seminary at Dallas Theological Seminary. While I was doing an intern at a church over the summer, the pastor died, unfortunately. And they were like, hey, would you mind being our pastor? And I was only like 22 years old. And I said, sure. So I started pastoring in Richmond, Indiana. It was a real small congregation, about 150 people. I stayed there for 3 years before moving to Chicago. And I went to a real traditional church called West Point Baptist Church. It was traditional Baptist church. It was a very large church. And it just wasn't a good fit. I wanted to do some non-traditional things, and they were very traditional. And so I decided to start a church called New Beginnings Church of Chicago. And we planted in Woodlawn, one of the toughest communities at that time. And it just took off and it grew. So we're now 25 years old. The church where we are on King Drive, 6620 South King Drive, used to be an old skating rink. And we took that old skating rink and put about a $5 million investment into it and made it a beautiful facility. And that's where we've been. And that's how I ended up in Chicago and in that tough neighborhood.
I want to back up a little bit because I feel like we were like childhood, and then I decided I was going to be a pastor. Like something must have happened. Like were your parents religious? Like what was your connection to God? What was your connection to the church? Like how did you wake up one day and decide that this was your calling?
So in that little small town of Kenton, Tennessee, everybody went to church. It was kind of strange because my grandmother went to a Methodist church, and the rest of the family went to a Baptist church. So we grew up in the Baptist church, but my grandma was a staunch Methodist, and she would not, but we always went to church. And from singing in the kids' choirs and participating in Sunday school and kids' church and things like that, it was a part of our life. And when we moved to Indiana, my mom was a staunch churchgoer. You in high school, I would get in trouble for staying out late and partying when I should not have been. But no matter what time you come in that house, on Sunday morning, you're getting up and going to church. And so we had to go to church. It was something that was ingrained and instilled into us, and me and my little brothers. And I'm glad. And because when I got older and wanted to do other things like party and kick it with friends, those seeds that were planted still kept sprouting back up and coming back up. And so eventually there was a situation where I had a close friend of mine that was shot and killed, and his name was Terrell Thomas. We called him Rail. And that incident made me evaluate, life and just how short life can be and how you got to find your purpose. And so I really started praying and asking God, what is my purpose? What should I be doing? What can I do? And the last thing I thought that I would be, honestly, was a preacher. I really did not like pastors. And I had my reasons for why I did not like them. But the last thing I wanted to do was be in our culture, a Cadillac driving pastor. That just wasn't my thing. So, but I knew God was calling me, and I sensed it ever since I was 14. I kind of felt that urge, that sense of I'm supposed to be a preacher, and I fought it with everything that I could until I was 19. And then at 19, I basically submitted and surrendered to the Lord, and it's like, okay, whatever you want me to do. And that's how it came about.
I can relate to this story so much. I'm the last person in a million years who would be in Jewish advocacy. I mean, so just that, and I think it goes back to like the man doesn't choose the times choose the man. And if you do have that antenna open to God at the right time, you will find your purpose in life, And I just think that's the biggest gift in life. People ask me like all the time, like, wow, you donate all your time to this cause, and it's an honor. It's an honor to be a conduit for God, and I truly believe that's my purpose. So I could really relate, Pastor.
Yeah, it's a tremendous honor. I tell people all the time that I have the greatest job in the world. I wouldn't want to do anything else than what I do right now, and that's serving God and serving people. I think I know that's my purpose in life, and I know that's why God put me on this planet, and I want to do the very best that I can do in serving Him and serving mankind.
Pastor, I want to touch on something because I think it's helped me being someone who, like I just said, never thought I would be in this space. You bring a lot of unconventional ideas to the table in a way where a lot of these issues have stalled out in Chicago. I'm a Chicago boy. I've heard about what's going on the South Side, on the West Side. I've heard about for years that the system has taken advantage of these folks, and there hasn't been resources. And then I heard about you almost a decade ago, about you sleeping on the roof of this building raising money. And I thought, here's a guy who is thinking outside of the box, he's willing to do anything for his people. And it's so genuine and it shines through. Do you think you coming from being a socialite and then coming into the space, you brought some unorthodox ideas and perspectives because of that. Where did you get these ideas to really help your.
Well, I think you're right. I think being a socialite and just being outside of the box, not being raised in a traditional manner of like a lot of people in Chicago. I wasn't part of the system, so to speak. I've been always kind of outside of the system. And so it's helped me with my perspective on how I see things and how I depend on certain things. And part of that concept is not waiting on anyone to do something for you, but doing everything you can to make it happen and going after it, rolling up your sleeves and getting dirty and putting the work in. And that, along with having this staunch belief that I'm not going to depend on government ever to change my situation or to change the situation of people who are around me. And so with those two things in mind, it's caused me to have to do some unorthodox things, non-traditional things like sleeping on top of a roof to raise money because I'm not waiting on government to write me a check. And I realized I had to get the attention of people who are compassionate and have a heart towards certain work. And so what better way to do that than to try to get their attention doing things that people will see. And that's kind of how I've approached a lot of the work that we do. I realize I have been given big vision to do some big things, and it takes a lot of resources. And, I don't have the check, so I got to get people who have a check to do it and to help us out, to partner with us and to collaborate with us. And so that's kind of where thinking outside the box comes from. Just how can I get people in tune to what we're doing? How can I get their attention and make them aware of what's going on? Because I really do believe that when you make people aware and they realize that what you're doing is genuine, you're really trying to help people, that God somehow sends the right people at the right time.
I have friends that attend a Baptist church, and I'm Jewish, but I love coming to church. I really do. And what you just said, where you're like, I'm not going to depend on anybody else. I'm not going to depend on the government, reminded me of a sermon I heard in church, and it was, you have everything you need. God has provided you with everything you need to accomplish the mission in front of you. And that really resonated with me because I think we talk about like perpetual victimhood a lot, like, in right now in Jewish advocacy. And I think it's such a detriment to be in this victimhood state and not work it out, like make it work, figure it out. So it's amazing to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, a lot of people in our community and in our culture have a victimhood mentality. And I think being born and raised in a little small town with a lot of family and being encouraged and pushed to want more and to see so many people in your family doing business and entrepreneurs and getting educated and coming out of that small town, I think that to this day, still has an impact on just how I see the world.
I think that there are people, especially in politics, who benefit from people staying in a victimhood mentality. And I think that is continued to be forced on groups of people, unfortunately.
Without a doubt, I would believe that wholeheartedly. There are a large segment of people, including a lot of politicians, that benefit from people having a victimhood mentality. And a lot of people make their living that way.
Well, because then they become dependent on those politicians who are going to help get you out of that situation. And I was born in the Soviet Union, like I come from communism. So I know a little bit about, what it's like when the government wants you to depend on them for everything and that you can't achieve anything on your own. And it's not, obviously, the Soviet Union was a failed experiment.
Absolutely.
It's also a sense of empowerment, when you do take your fate and put it into your own hands. There is a sense of empowerment. Pastor Brooks, something that I wanted to ask you about, at the Chicago Jewish Alliance, the acronym Chicago Jewish Alliance, CJA, each letter is a pillar into what we believe would be successful advocacy. And one of the letters is alliance. And we have tried really hard to make that, top of mind, that we're going to reach out to other communities. This is something that you have done so successfully. I have heard from Jewish advocates about you. I've heard from Black advocates about you. I've heard from so many different people in different ecosystems about you. What do you think it is about your work that transcends even your own ecosystem, and really just pours through into everyone else's? What is it that you have tapped into? Because we would like to tap into that.
I think finding people with like-minded values, I think for the most part, we want America to be the very best that she can be. And part of doing that is realizing that it takes a lot of us from different walks of life, from different points of view. And we have to somehow figure out how not to be divided, but to be unified. So somewhere along the line, I stopped trying to look at what divides us and started looking at more what unites us and focusing more on the things that unite us than divide us. And so I think when you look for those things with people, you find more commonality, and it keeps a lot of arguments down, and it helps you to work better with different people. So I'm always looking for what can we agree on? Okay, we may not disagree. We may disagree on a lot, but can we agree that these kids need to be mentored? Can we agree that people need to have a living job, a career? Can we agree that people need safe spaces and we need to keep crime down and stop the murders and things, like that? So I just try to find the things that we can agree on and work from there. And then the things that we don't agree on, hey, let's go to our separate corners and that'll be okay. But then let's continue to come back together to work on the things that we agree on. So that's how I pretty much live my life here in the latter parts of my living.
All right. So tell us about this new project. You have just pretty much walked all of America. And where are you today? Are you back in Chicago?
No, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. So we started September the 1st in New York Times Square. And today, at this recording is actually day 100. So day 100, we're 100 days in. We're in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we're headed toward Atlanta. We'll get to Atlanta on January 1st, and then we will start heading west to Los Angeles, California, and we will arrive there next year, September 19th of 2026. So we're walking across America. We're trying to raise $25 million to do several things. One, to pay off the center that we're building that costs $47 million. We've raised $40 million already, and that center is about 75% complete. And secondly, we're starting a school for boys and girls, one for boys, one for girls, kindergarten through 8th grade, classical learning schools to help in our neighborhood. Third, seed money to start an endowment, again, because we're not waiting on the government and we're not using government monies and funds. So we got to start an endowment and raise a whole lot more money so we can continue to fund the things that we do. And then the fourth thing is we're looking for places to plant projecthoods. Hood stands for Helping Others Obtain Destiny. It's our non-for-profit. And it's one of the ways that we are changing bad neighborhoods block by block, whether they're in the urban or rural areas. We believe every block can make a comeback in America, and that's what we want to help to do.
I have so many questions. How do you prepare physically and mentally to do this? Are you just running away from the cold? Is that why you're heading towards California?
We decided not to go through the Midwest because we're like, hey, we're not going to make it through the Midwest in the winter. That's going to be impossible. So let's avoid it as much as possible. We walk 12.5 miles Monday through Friday. And on Saturdays and Sundays, we take off and we do events and things of that sort. But every day we're walking 12.5 miles. We just try to keep up as much as possible and stay with the walk. There's a group of about 6 of us, and then we have a big RV, and a small RV. The big RV goes like 70 miles ahead of us, and the small RV stays with us and goes a mile ahead of us. So we walk to it, and then it goes another mile. So we got a good plan, and we got a good team. The team is made up of a bunch of younger guys, and so it's my youngest son's his friends, and so I get to travel with them. I get to learn a lot about what's going on with young people, and they're really engaging, and they really participate, and they really keep me going.
How has it been received in the communities you're walking through? Are people like out on the street waving at you as you pass by? Like people know you're coming. And then I'm assuming people are approaching you and walking with you a bit and having conversations with you. What are some of the like unexpected things you've learned so far from those?
I've learned that America has some wonderful people, some great people. We hear so much about the hatred, and we hear so much about the disunity, but I've been experiencing people from all walks of life walking with us, encouraging us, giving, saying great things, so it's been really inviting us to their homes for dinner, to sleep all night. It's been a fantastic trip. So, we've been in some great places. We stayed with the Amish out in Pennsylvania for a whole day, and we rode the horse and buggies and drank homemade root beer and ate the Amish food. It was really great experience. So then we went to Kensington in Philadelphia, where there's a lot of drug usage, and people are addicted to drugs, and we saw that experience. So we went to DC. We had a big event in a really tough neighborhood. We threw a block party because we reached one of our goals, and to see all of those kids outside playing and having fun in that neighborhood was really a blessing. And so we've been doing things all across the walk so far, and we're going to continue to do those type of events, and hopefully they'll get bigger and bigger.
Is there one person or one story that you would want to share with us that you met so far on the walk that you were really moved by?
I do a story that comes out every Tuesday. It's called Rooftop Revelations, the Road Edition. And I wrote about this girl that in Kensington that broke my heart. If people don't know about Kensington, it's a area in Philadelphia where it's just an open drug market. They sell drugs, they use drugs, and it's just wide open. And it's really devastating. It's very difficult to just see. But there was a young lady, she was really pretty, and I just could not believe how broken she was. And then when I realized she was pregnant, my heart sank, and we tried, to connect her back to her family, but she didn't want to. We tried to get her some help. She didn't want to. And, as much as you may want to help somebody, they have to want it themselves. But that story really kind of like broke me to see this young, beautiful girl just addicted and pregnant and didn't want to connect back with her family. So that was hard and tough. The other side is we met this girl in Lancaster, I think, at the market. She was asking us a bunch of questions, and we just thought, okay, she's just asking us questions. And about an hour later, she comes back, and she's a dance instructor, and she had moved to Lancaster, Pennsylvania from New York, and she had made up a song and a dance for us. And so she taught us the dance in the market and taught us the song. And so that was really fun too. And so people clapped and watched, and we filmed it and put it on social media, but that was really fun as well. So we met so many people, and I have so many stories, meeting so many kids from schools and things like that. So yeah, I'm full of stories.
Yeah, you talked about you've been traveling with your son, and that you've been seeing a lot of the youth. How do you engage the youth? I mean, I feel like you would be probably someone who knows with your unconventional ways. I think that's something that we're always trying to do here at CJA. What do you find successful with the younger generation in connecting them?
The one thing that I found to be successful is to be able to be relatable. I've got the gray hair and I look like grandpa, but when I start talking to them and they know that I know their music, I know what they watch on TV, I know their celebrities. So I try to find common things, common interests, things that they like that I can talk about. And once you start conversations, they start, yes. And then especially when I tell them I'm from O Block in Chicago, that kind of like wherever we go, regardless of the culture or what race, whenever we say O Block, Chicago, if they are between the ages of 12 and 25, automatic. And so we just try to have discussions on things that they can relate to.
And do you find it hard for people in different geographical locations to want to invest in Chicago? We get this all the time. We're the Chicago Jewish Alliance, and we solicit to people in other states all the time. How do you connect those dots?
Yeah, it is difficult to get people in other places to give towards Chicago. But one of the things that I try to tell them is that if we could solve the issues in one of the worst neighborhoods in America, then we can possibly begin to do some of the things to help some of the other neighborhoods in America. So I tell them, listen, I'm trying to create a model for what I believe can work. And I'm trying to create a model without government. And the only way I can do that is with help from American citizens. And for us, we've gotten over 25,000 new donors, most of those from all across America, and most of those in red states like where I'm traveling now, like North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, all of those places. And so I just try to tell them the story, and I try to make sure that they understand how great the need is. And if we don't do it collectively together, it'll never be done. So somehow, some way, I just try to make sure that I get people to buy into being unified and seeing themselves as the answer to a very difficult situation.
What are the biggest issues you feel are a threat to your community at the moment that you're hoping to solve?
Well, one, moving people out of being victims. The victimhood mentality is so dangerous, and it has not done our community any good. So that's a big thing. Secondly, getting people to understand that you may not go to college, but learn a trade, do something meaningful that you can take care of yourself and your family. Getting people to understand that has been difficult. And then we're fighting some cultural wars as well. The violence, the entertainment, those type of issues we constantly have to battle every single day. And then I would say the last one is making sure that we get our kids educated. One of the things that breaks my heart is in our neighborhood, there's a 4% reading proficiency at one of our schools, a 6% math proficiency. And you would think that people would be up in arms and going crazy, but it's almost as if it's acceptable and it's okay. And so to get people to understand that this is not acceptable, this is not okay, and this is not normal, and to do something about it is a major challenge.
Is this a CPS school?
Yes.
Yeah. We're in City Hall quite often, and we're watching people from the South Side coming up to City Hall, and the lack of resources that are being allocated by our city to neighborhoods, to schools like this is just it's horrendous. It's horrendous what's happening in Chicago. And you mentioned, we're in a very democratic state. We're in a very democratic city, and you're walking through red states and you're meeting people giving money. How's it been navigating this in Chicago with our current administration and everything going on?
Now that is a great question. It's tough. And I don't think people realize how tough it is. And because I'm so much against being a victim. I try not to, I don't want to ever come across that way. So I try to shy away from saying some things, but it's really tough because I am conservative and I tell people I'm conservative. I tell people I have a value system and I talk about my value system. And a lot of the things that I say are contrary to the democratic machine that is in place in Chicago, including the leadership of the mayor and the governor. And so they definitely don't do anything to help our cause. And, that's unfortunate because we're one of the few non-for-profits that's building a $50 million facility on the south side of Chicago on a block called O Block, where crime and murder was, the thing of the day. And for us to be transforming the neighborhood, we definitely don't get the attention that we should. But I do know why that is. The last thing they want to have to say is Corey Brooks, this Black conservative, is helping to change the norm and helping to change the neighborhood. And so they're definitely not going to do anything to help our cause.
It's so crazy when you see that politics over people. We're an amalgamation of all different ideologies. I mean, at Chicago Jewish Alliance, across the spectrum, really. But it goes back to what you said back in the beginning. Like, it's the common denominator is a value system. I mean, what tethers this country together is nothing other than a similar value system. That's what makes us Americans. And a lot of this is bipartisan. It's just it's apolitical. It's like, do you support this? So that's terrible to see. I will say that there are legacy organizations in the Jewish space, these centralized powers, that are also very political with us, and you don't see altruism prevail as which is unfortunate. But then it also validates the work you're doing, Pastor, and how important it is that if that's their mindset.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry, I just
no.
Okay.
I understand. I agree with you totally, Dave. I get it.
The value systems we're discussing, I feel like there's an attack on American values and merit and hard work and success and achievement. And I do feel like both of our communities are dealing with the same type of people who are wanting to tear down these types of systems right now. So is that what you're seeing and feeling as well?
I feel that totally. I think when you talk about merit and responsibility, accountability, family values, I think they are definitely under attack. And again, I think that's the reason why we have to be more vocal. We have to find more advocacy. We have to figure out ways to collaborate and work together so that our voice can have more volume. And we cannot just allow people to dismantle certain things. And if we don't say something, if we don't do something, they're just going to have their way. And the America that we would love to see will never happen.
Pastor Brooks, besides the Bible, who and maybe what pieces of literature have influenced you, at least philosophically, politically, or theologically? Who should we be reading? A young kid coming up.
Well, people laughing when I tell them this, but I love reading about generals of wars, just their ways of thinking. And like my favorite is Patton. And matter of fact, that's my hotel nickname, Patton. And I don't want people to know. I check under Patton, so not everybody's gonna know. But yeah, I love reading about the generals. I love reading about history, not just American history, but world history, understanding how things happen and why they happen, so that we don't repeat some of the same things. And so I love to read. And so, yeah, that's.
Can I tell you, when people ask me, like, why who thought of the foundation or the structure for Chicago Jewish Alliance, like with the organization. And besides Simona, our COO, pretty much putting it all together, at the time I was reading Lincoln, actually. I was reading his biography, and I was reading about how he organized the train system and how he looked at war as a logistical challenge. I read that and tried to use that in the foundations of Chicago Jewish Alliance, that there's going to be a lot of people who want to be advocates and run to the front lines, but it's really the organization behind the front lines is what, fights the battle. And so I are there any political philosophers specifically that you're into? I know, I've been reading a lot lately. So some of what you're speaking of, it reminds me of Thomas Sowell. And
I was gonna say, I've read everything on Thomas Sowell and Shelby, and Shelby Steele. So anything written by those two individuals, I probably have read it and absorbed it, and a lot of what they teach, I believe, and I preach, and I talk about. Outside of politics, or sociology, I love reading anything by Malcolm Gladwell. I'm kind of go to extremes. So
do you listen to Revisionist History, his podcast?
Yeah, I've listened to it, and sometimes I listen to it because sometimes I want to know. I like great thinkers. I may not agree with what they say, but I love people who are just like phenomenal thinkers, and Malcolm Gladwell is like a major thinker, and so I love listening to Malcolm Gladwell.
He, I think it was Outliers. That book changed my life. 10,000 hours, right? 10,000 hours for anything. Yeah.
Yes, 10,000 hours. I believe that, and I go by that. That's the rooftop experience. That's this walk across America experience. I just believe if I'm focused and I put the time in and keep pushing it, eventually it's going to spill over.
How did you come up with the walk across America? Like, what was the impetus for the idea? How did it come to be?
So I knew that we needed to get more eyes on what we're doing, and I needed to somehow get the message beyond Chicago. And I thought, what a great way to do it than just walk across America and tell our story and touch hearts and minds of people that normally would not be able to know about what we're doing. And so that the whole walk across America was born out of, we need more and more exposure, and we need more and more people to collaborate with us. And you never know where these individuals are going to be. So I can't just sit in Chicago and wait for them to come. I'm going to get out there and try to see if I can ruffle feathers and tell stories and make connections. And so that's kind of how it was born.
Other than obviously the fundraising, what type of collaboration are you, I always ask, like, what can our community do to help? Like, what types of collaboration and support are you looking for?
So as we go across the country, we're always looking to visit organizations, and I'm always looking to help organizations as well, because I really do believe you reap what you sow, and life has a boomerang effect. What you throw out is what you get back. And so if I can help people along the way, then I feel like those seeds will come back to us. And so anything that I can do to help organizations across the country, meeting with Jewish organizations and some of my Jewish brothers and sisters, telling them the story about what we're doing and collaborating with them, I really love to do that. Any way that you all or anyone else can continue to spread the message about what we're doing and help us to reach some places that we normally would not be able to reach, that would be a great blessing to us to help us to finish this walk and be successful. And so I always tell people we're looking for three things: time, talent, and treasure. So if people can give us their time, they can give us a little of their talent, and they can give us their treasure, we'll be able to make it work.
Tell us more about the center itself and what everything's going towards.
So the center is 90,000 square feet. It's a fantastic facility. It has 3 restaurants where we're teaching culinary art skills with a community kitchen. We have a well-now urgent healthcare where people can go and get 24-hour healthcare services in an emergency. We have a trauma counseling facility where we provide trauma counseling and all kind of counseling services. We have a violence prevention area where we work on the violence on the south side of Chicago, and also train people across America to help do violence interruption and violence prevention. We have a bank, a Wintrust Bank, a full bank. We have Olympic-sized swimming pool. We have a theater. We have 2 gyms, 2 basketball courts. We have a music studio, a dance studio, a TV production studio. We also have a golf simulation room where kids can learn how to hit golf balls and be caddies and things of that sort. We have a community space, but the biggest part of it is our trade school. So we have a trade school where we're teaching HVAC, electrical, carpentry, and automotive and roofing. So we're really excited about that. And then we have a rooftop area where the community can come and have space to have meetings and gatherings as well, so they can see straight downtown from our roof. It's a fabulous place, and it's beautiful. One of the things that we wanted to make sure of is that a lot of times when people do things in our neighborhood, they don't expect for it to be excellent. And so one of our core values is excellence. And we tell people excellence costs, but it pays for itself. So our building is excellent. It's going to be beautiful. The architecture of the building is phenomenal. The inside of the building is going to be phenomenal. And it's going to be a space that when people come in from wherever they are, they're going to have the wow effect, and they're going to be amazed at just how a beautiful facility could be on the south side of Chicago in one of the worst neighborhoods in the country.
I know we're coming up on the end of the hour, but and that is just amazing. First of all, that is a holistic approach to helping, right? It's teaching, it's getting them the healthcare that they need, all those things that give someone dignity. And then to be able to learn a trade is beautiful. When I was growing up, a big pride in the Jewish advocacy world was our relationship with the Black community and African American communities during Martin Luther King. I mean, my aunts, my uncles used to talk about this as a big civil action in the Jewish space is a pride in general, but specifically with the Black community in the 50s and 60s. However, it does seem now that relationships seems to be eroding in certain areas, and strengthening in others. But what is your perspective on that? What can we do to really? I truly believe when the Jews and the Blacks are together, that is a force to be reckoned with. You know, it represents like all of culture. It represents so much. You know, and if we can just allow it,
yeah, I can tell you why from the Black perspective, that's it's not as strong as it needs to be. And one of the things that we got to work on is that you have a lot of individuals, especially who are not biblically trained, theologically trained. You have a lot of social media pastors, I call them. They're not theologically trained. I don't know where they came from, but they haven't gone to school to learn anything. And as a consequence, the issue of Palestine, they have no clue where they should stand because they haven't been trained biblically to know where to stand. And so the whole Palestine issue is really that narrative of being pro-Palestinian is growing that fast in our neighborhood because we have pastors and churches that are not biblically trained, theologically trained to know what position we should take. And so I'm pro-Israel, and I tell everybody I'm pro-Israel, and I believe that Israel is God's chosen people, but that comes from a theological training, a biblical perspective. And I think we're losing that. And I think what has to happen is that these relationships have to be strengthened, and we have to be more vocal. And if we don't, the same values that we're seeing lost in America, we're going to see them being lost in the relationships between Blacks and the Jewish people. And so we got to do a much better job at making sure that connection stays in place. And it has to be a relationship that's reciprocal, where we're helping one another and it's not just one way. And I think we have to have conversations like this. We have to somehow have more conversations and get people to understand the importance and why it's significant, and also understand the history, because without the Jewish brothers and sisters, the civil rights movement would have never been what it was. And so we have to do that, and it's important. That's a long answer. That's my soapbox, but I'm really passionate about how we see Israel and the relationship we have with Israel. I'm really passionate about that.
Well, just the bookends on that really quick is I think that's right. I think pop culture, people see like Kanye West and they don't learn about Sears, right? And how like Jews were funding education. So I think that the Jews and the Blacks were before the American white people, they were already in business together for the good, the bad, and the ugly. So you're going to have good, the bad, and the ugly. But the important things on a macro level is these two bodies of people working together to make change has always been brilliant. So go ahead, Simone. I'm sorry, honey.
I was just going to say, I think there's some really deep felt pain on both sides with this rift. It's so painful and felt so significantly. And I'm going to quote Pastor Washington here, but he talked a lot about, we had him on the podcast and we brought him into Chicago to do a speaking engagement. He talked a lot about how the PLO attached itself to anything it deemed to be a righteous cause. Therefore, when they stood next to the civil rights movement or next to a righteous cause, then their cause was also seen as righteous. And like yesterday, I'm just on social media and I saw an image, and it was like the Sudanese flag and the Palestinian flag, and they were merged together and they were like same pain. And I want to be like, those are completely different situations happening, and what's happening in Sudan, and like, how dare you like equate and co-op what's happening to people in Sudan right now? And, I know like people have been screaming about what's happening in Sudan and Nigeria and Syria and like for forever. And it's finally getting some media attention, and people are finally paying attention to the atrocities happening there. And the first thing you want to do is co-opt that like for your own, like it's really infuriating.
Yeah. And that's exactly like with the whole Black Lives Matter thing, they co-opt that. And so You're exactly right. There's a lot of co-opting of pain, of grievances, and those when you put that with social media and pop culture, you got a lot to fight.
How do we, it's very targeted. It's very targeted, and how do we help alleviate some of this misinformation on our end?
I think podcasts like this they're important. I think we have to, I hate to use the words like this, but fight fire with fire, which means we got to be just as active on social media. We have to be just as active on platforms to get our message out. And I think that's one of the things that if I were talking to some of my Jewish brothers and sisters, I would tell them, look, you need to be just as passionate about your platforms and getting your viewpoints out as they are, because they're very passionate and they do any and everything to get their message out. And sometimes I'm like, come on, you gotta get with it. You gotta get the message out. And I think sometimes we don't want to be looked at as if we're being aggressive, but sometimes you have to roll up your sleeves and you have to fight a little bit. And so yeah, that's That's what I believe.
Well, we appreciate you keeping up the good fight and totally transcending Chicago into something. I mean, it's just completely amazing. And we want to thank you so much for joining us on Jew and Stew and being such an advocate for the Jewish people, for all people, really, you know. Simona, is there any closing thoughts that you would like to talk to the pastor or say?
Is there going to be a big party at the center when the walk is done and the center is built? And can we come and celebrate with you, please?
Yes, absolutely. You all have to come and set your podcast up. We're going to have a lot of people there, but we're having a big celebration, hopefully the end of June. The walk won't be complete, but the center, that's when we're going to have a big grand opening, hopefully. So the end of June, everyone that I've talked to, every podcast that I've been on, we're going to invite everybody to come. We've already working on the whole King Drive. The street is going to be cut off. It's going to be red carpeted, the whole street. We're going to make it a big Hollywood type of event. And so you have to come out. You have to be a part of it.
I will be there with bells on.
And we will definitely be.
Yes.
Pastor, what is the website where we can see you? And we'll put it up here.
Okay. It's Projecthood, HOOD, projecthood.org. And they can find out about the walk. They can find out about our work. And they can find out where I'm going to be next on my walk across America.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today, Pastor Brooks.
Blessings to you both. Thank you.
Pastor Brooks, what you're doing isn't symbolic. It's demanding, it's inconvenient, and it costs something. And that's the point. The Black and Jewish story in America has never been perfect, but at its best, it has been rooted in mutual respect, moral seriousness, and the understanding that freedom survives when communities refuse to retreat into isolation. Pastor Brooks, you're reminding people that solidarity is not nostalgia. You're reminding people it's work. One step at a time, one conversation at a time, and one act of courage at a time. And in a country that often forgets its own moral architecture, that kind of walk matters. Pastor Brooks, thank you for the miles and thank you for coming on our show today. If you'd like to hear more, please subscribe. We are on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. Just type in Chicago Jewish Alliance on YouTube and you'll find all the videos for Jew and Stew. Until next time, thanks so much. Follow the Chicago Jewish Alliance to stay in the loop and subscribe to this podcast so you can see what's coming next. We're going to have speakers that represent the entire spectrum of the Jewish community, from philosophical thinkers, from soldiers, people on the front lines of advocacy work on universities. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next time.